We want to see you there. So let's support that. And then on the 29th, we're going to be downtown. That's right, downtown. We're not going to be in our backyard parks, y'all. We're going to be downtown, and we're going to have kick it off with a parade at 11:30 at 16th and Lakeside, and come on down to Mall C, where our headliner will be Carlos Jones. So we're going to have games for the kids, crafts. We got the Black Soldiers going to be there. Black Drag Car Racers going to be there. A representative from the Tuskegee Airmen, the Triple Nickel, Air Troopers. You know, we do this with a purpose and education. So bring your family and kids down to get a little education and join in the festivities. You can give me a call at 216-323-6155, 216-323-6155. And they say everybody can't do everything, but everybody can do something. So, hey, get some flyers for me, and let's put it on your social media platforms, and let's make it a grand event. Come on, y'all. Let's make this happen. Yes, in the remote studio, we got our good brother Vince. What's going on?
Well, I'm happy to tell you that next month I will be doing a one-person show during the Borderlight Festival. It is a 4-day festival that happens at Playhouse Square, and I will be premiering a film that I did on the life of Winston Willis. There's a poem that goes with the film. I'll be doing some original music. I'll be doing some poetry, and I'll be posting that information to Facebook very soon. So I just want everyone to be on the lookout for that. I'm really excited about this opportunity to bring the message to the people. And the title of my show is Unmasked, Navigating a New World Order. So I'm really looking forward to bringing that to you. So again, stay tuned. We'll get you more on those events. You can check out the Facebook page and you'll get all those details. I'll also be posting information about the festival that Brother Antonio just mentioned. So you can plug into our network and you can get details and everything that's coming up in June and July. And just one other thing, we would like to highly encourage you to visit our Facebook pages and our YouTube channels. Please subscribe to our channels. You know, I know I'm on a mission. I can't speak for my brother Antonio, but once we get to 1,000 subscribers on our channel, we'll be able to do some very meaningful things with the content that we're providing for you. So with that, I would like to welcome to our airwaves, Dr. Burnett Gallman. You can see his middle name is Quadwo, and we'll give you a chance to tell us what that's all about. I don't know if you were given that name at birth, but knowing what I know about day names, everybody's got one. Some of us just don't know about it. I know I'm a Yao. I don't know about Brother Antonio. I think what day were you born on, Lynn?
I thought it was Wednesday, but then I found out I thought it's Thursday. So
Okay.
I forgot what Thursday born was, but I know Wednesday was Kwaku. Kwame.
I don't know. I have
I
it right
can tell
here.
you because I was born on Thursday, brother.
Oh,
You a Yao. We both Yao.
yeah. I looked at it and I said, wait a minute, I thought all the time it was Wednesday, but I
Yes.
think it's Thursday now. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Well, just want to give you a slight bit of information about our guest, and we've had him on a few weeks ago. We're having him on again, and glad to see him again. He is a physician by trade. He is a gastroenterologist, but he is also one who is steeped in the history of Africa and African Americans, and we'll be tugging on his brain to give us vital information, knowledge, and wisdom about our history. We'd like to welcome the 360 Info Network once again, Dr. Burnett Gallman. Welcome to our program, brother.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir, my good brother. Yeah, unfortunately we only got you for a short time, so I want to get into it a little bit. And we had a prior conversation, and I think it's a good topic and a good subject to possibly maybe towards another interview when we talk about medicine in ancient Kemet, and how they were far ahead of us and dealing with medical science and things like that. So since you're in the medical field, and I thought it would be nice to talk about blacks, in relationship to maybe some inequities as far as the medical field is concerned. And I think it's something neat to know on how the system on how this country portrayed and dealt with us, in reference to the medical industry, and it's just some things that we need to know about it. And I think with that would be a precursor on how we look at the medical industry as a whole, how it is related to Black folks in general.
Agreed. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to share what little I know about the topic. When we think about this whole idea that they call health disparities, um, and we look back at the history of it and what has been done and what is being done at this point, one word comes to my mind, and that is genocide, crimes against humanity, because you look at these things and that's what it equals. So um, I'm anxious to answer what questions you prepared so that I can.
Mhm, mhm.
Uh, and
Yeah.
as you know, I like to run my mouth, so you don't have to tell me to
Yeah.
shut up.
What, Doc? We it's like a interesting relationship that we, as Black folks, have with the medical system. Because some of us is just a starch believer, and we have a whole lot of confidence into the whole medical system. But a lot of us don't know the history of it, on how we've been experimented on, how they looked at us. Like I gave you that one piece talking about the Oregon experiment, and how Black were, treated during that time. And then even letting us know and having an understanding about Rockefeller's role in it with the American Medical Association, and how that was developed, and how the medical industry itself, developed and took off from that point. Could you kind of give us a baseline on that?
Sure. Actually, let's start before then.
Hmm.
Let's look at what I call slave medicine. And during the era of slave medicine, you had people who were experimenting on our enslaved Africans, and frequently purchasing them just for that reason, just to experiment on them, and that led to um, actually some diseases that were unique to people of African origin. One of my favorite is drapetomania. Um, this white physician from Louisiana by the name of Cartwright came up with a disease called drapetomania. Some people pronounce it drapetomania. And basically, what that was is a disease that caused Africans to run away for freedom. I mean, the sickness that they had was such that they saw us wanting to be free as being sick. Um, I think that, and there's a whole thing, I would refer anyone interested in this. I did a lecture not too long ago, which is on YouTube, in which I go through the whole idea of slave
Freedom revolt.
medicine,
Hmm.
and actually, I think um, one of the things that perhaps at some point we can talk about is eugenics,
Hmm.
because eugenics was a pseudoscience that evolved. It was started in England and it was matured in America, and it was operationalized in Nazi Germany and in World War II Japan. And basically, this was a science that, in a few words, this was a science that defined Black folk as less than, as inferior. That, even though many eugenicists recognize us as being human, as opposed to the slave medicine doctors who saw us as a different species, but eugenicists saw us as a lesser form of human. And it's interesting, those strict eugenicists actually saw Southern and Eastern Europeans as being inferior to Northern and Western Europeans. It's so interesting because they had this really, really tremendous need to feel superior.
Mhm.
And as a result of that, there were several governmental policies resulting from eugenics that resulted in involuntary sterilization of women. And it's interesting because when I first moved back to Columbia, South Carolina, um, uh, after my training, I went to medical school in Philadelphia, and I went to did my training in Washington. When I moved back to South Carolina to practice, there were gynecologists here who were taking out Black women's uteruses, and they were multimillionaires on the uteruses of Black women. And this came to my attention when I saw a young lady in my office who was 21, 22 years old, and she had had a hysterectomy done when she was a teenage. And I asked her, "Why did you have it done?" And her only answer she could give me was, "The doctor said I needed it."
Mhm.
And I asked her what symptoms she was having. She said, "No, I wasn't having any symptoms. He just said I needed it." And bless her heart, she and her parents allowed that to happen. So, um, and I found out that that was fairly common in here. So, I
Mhm.
started making noise, um, and those particular physicians who I had identified as doing that, um, I think one of them retired, and the other one um, just stopped doing it arbitrarily.
So,
Uh,
Dr. Gallman, excuse the interruption, but I have to ask a question. What do you think would motivate a physician to do something like that, especially knowing that you've taken the ability of a young person to exercise their ability to reproduce? Why would they take such an extreme measure with a patient like that?
I would think that probably the mindset of that individual would be the same mindset of someone who put millions of people in slavery.
Mhm.
The same mindset as King Leopold,
Mhm.
who said, "You're going to do this, or I'm going to cut off your hand."
Yeah.
Um, when you look at that, brings up a whole different
Right.
conversation.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
going to start
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about
Mhm.
the two cradle theory and the
Mhm.
psychological, cultural, and development of humanity.
Right.
And
Mhm.
it's
See, you
that's
bring up
a rabbit hole,
interesting.
right?
Right. You bring up something interesting because see, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this particular conversation because when you that's why history is so important. When you know what type of folks that you're dealing with and you know on the origins of a lot of stuff. And because of situations, here and there that cause folks, just like, for our civil rights is concerned, we got more and more rights as time go on and it became hidden, like we said, it was a physical enslavement at first, now it's a mental enslavement. So it's a progression. But that type of attitude in a sense still remains somewhere in the and since we talk about the medical industry, in the medical industry, when it deals with black folks and African Americans around the world. Look at what Bill Gates now. He has this benevolent type of behavior. He wants to save all the Africans now. For some reason, he ain't a medical doctor because, and based on what you just said too, is that those experiments happened all through Africa, all in America. These folks having as far as these hysterectomies is concerned and vasectomies. With that organ experiment that what we was talking about, They took it was okay as far as the prisoners is concerned. They put radiation into their testicles, and then so they didn't come back and have any deformity in the babies and things like that. They made them sign to vasectomies. And I believe it was in that article, one of those states, I want to say Indiana, with the practice of eugenics. I believe it. I forgot which state it was, but over to 2,500 people that they, called themselves sterilizing because they didn't want to deal with the imbeciles, the feeble minds, or the criminal. But I'm saying all this to say we have to understand the medical system that we are a part of, and we entrusting in so much, so much. This is the point, and that's something that has been going on across the world forever.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I think, in my opinion, you rightfully point to the study of eugenics as being the cause, because there's an article that I just pulled up. I hadn't had a chance to read it yet, written by someone who Tadashi Dozono, and it was written in a journal called Theory and Research in Social Education, and the title drew me in: Eugenic Ideology and the World History Curriculum: How Eugenic Beliefs Structure Narratives of Development and Modernity. And I do know that, for instance, most of us are aware of the Tuskegee experiment. And what's interesting is that at the beginning of the Tuskegee experiment, it lasted quite a few years, but at the beginning, three of the driving physicians were graduates of the University of Virginia Medical School. And at the University of Virginia Medical School, eugenics was taught as part of the curriculum of medical school. As a matter of fact, eugenics was taught as a regular course in almost 200 colleges, universities, medical schools in the country. So that a lot of the policies, the beliefs, the tenets of this pseudoscience were passed down, and much like what the AHA, the American Historical Society, did for the retelling of history. What happened is that they told a version of history very frequently that many of them knew was wrong, or they were basing their opinions on their racist beliefs. And but then those ideas were passed on from generation to generation and generation.
Yes.
And I think who was Hitler's was it his
Physician.
information chief?
Okay.
Goebbels, I think. Anyway, he said, if you tell a lie enough, it becomes truth.
Mhm.
And especially if you tell a lie frequently over generations.
Mhm.
So that, for instance, when I first went into practice, even though I had subspecialized in gastroenterology, I didn't have a referral base large enough to support that. So I was doing general internal medicine. And one of the things that I found was that in my sickle cell patients, very frequently they were subjected to so much agonizing pain um, in the emergency room because they were labeled as drug seekers, which I'm convinced had a racial component to it. And then there's this belief that actually, I think a few years ago, some people did a survey and found that a lot of folks, medical students, still believe this. And there's this belief that Black folks' skin is
Mhm.
thicker and we don't feel pain
Mhm.
as much.
Right.
So a lot of the tenets of eugenics, I think that those of us who are studying our history and studying uh, the various streams of our past experiences really need many of us need to concentrate on eugenics and see that eugenics actually has formed the basis of a lot of racist thought today. As a matter of fact, there was another article that I saw that tried to see whether eugenics caused racism or whether racism caused eugenics. And they found that whereas they couldn't draw a cause and effect, but they found that most eugenicists were racist.
Yeah, and I can believe that for sure. Doc, you know, and when you said that, it made me think about those experiments that tend to be pushed back in the annals of history about how they, those exploratory surgeries with women without anesthesia. You know, back in the day. You know, and I think this may be a good place to to further, take a look at this and an analogy on what we dealing with and how we dealing with in this country, because there's information out there. We talked about the book, The Medical Apartheid, you know, and this just giving you a little synopsis or outlook of, what we dealing with in this country, that we have to take some of this responsibility on ourselves, on learning our physiology, and maybe going back to some of the basic stuff that our people and our dealt with as far as the body is concerned a long time ago. Because you know there's a book called The Higher Form of Killings, where they talk about over, I think, 300 or 400 times that the government has experimented on the general public, not only just black folks, white folks, as well. So we need to look at this thing, and this is why we having this discussion. We need to look at this thing really critically, because uh, Doc, correct me if I'm wrong at all, or because something that I used to say all the time. Two things. One, I would, logically believe that most of the instrumentation and calibrations that we deal with as far as the physiology of the body is based on a white male and female in this particular country. Would I be safe to say that?
You would be very safe, and I think that it's a numbers game because uh, most of the times they base it on the people that they have averaged out, and the overwhelming majority of those people are of European origin.
Mhm. Yeah. So with that being said, then, let me add this piece to this. Would it be safe to say, I know when people start talking about DNA, and there's a very small difference, in DNAs. Even when we talk about humanoids and we talk about animals, but just that little bit of difference can change the whole, structure and physical of a mammal, as we can say, So when we talk about, we know we have melanin, and when you start talking about the biochemistry of an individual and how this melanin plays a role in that. So if that statement is true about the instrumentation, calibrations, and how the medical system is made up on, shouldn't we be having a special type of conversation? Black folks should be having a special kind of conversation when we going in there and looking at medical treatment.
Actually, I think that there are some medical researchers that are doing that now.
Mm.
Um, there's a young woman, I've never met her, uh, in North Carolina. Her last name is Boulware, who has done quite a bit of publishing on she's a kidney specialist, and she's done quite a bit of publication on the uniqueness of people of African origin when it comes to kidney disease. Her name, I think, is Ebony Boulware. Again, I've never met her, but I've followed her work, and she's doing very, very good work. Um, I want to say she's in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, but I'm not sure. I know she was at Duke for a minute, but she's someone. And again, you mentioned activism. Uh, One of the things that I hope to do sometime soon is stimulate a group of people to attack. You know, we hear about J. Marion Sims. J. Marion Sims is celebrated as the father of gynecology. He was born in South Carolina, and I think he ended up practicing mostly in New York City. And he develops surgical techniques that were revolutionary. However, in so doing, he performed surgery on enslaved Black women without anesthesia in order to test his theories. And in South Carolina, on the on the northeastern corner of our state capitol grounds, there's a beautiful monument to this monster. And I know there was a monument to him in New York that the folks got to, they actually were able to make them take it down. I want to do that here. Um, but what happens is that I don't know. This is probably more South Carolina history than but we had a governor and senator during at the end of Reconstruction, whose name was Ben Tillman. We call him Pitchfork Ben Tillman, who was a rabid racist. I think I call him the successor to John C. Calhoun. And if anyone were to go and read the congressional record on anything he said, he hated Black folk. And there's a statue of him on on the State House grounds. So that we have a lot of work to do, but I think we need to do it. Um, as a matter of fact, I might add that Ben Tillman was his protege was Strom Thurmond. You all might know that name.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lineage that we can work with. So, but let me see if I can find this. I have some notes here that I wanted to do this just to talk about some of those things that you alluded to, brother. There was a Dr. Walter Jones in Petersburg, Virginia, who poured boiling water on the backs of naked enslaved Africans, 5 gallons every 4 hours, just to treat typhoid pneumonia in the 1840s. There was another Dr. James Dugas who pioneered eye surgery, experimenting on enslaved Africans. Dr. John Hardin of Liberty County, Georgia, stripped blood vessels from the limbs of, quote, a Negro and 3 hogs in order to measure them. And I mean, it goes into even more. In the 1830s, there was a medical college here in South Carolina that used to advertise that we have bodies for you to learn anatomy on. Guess what bodies they were talking about?
Oh my goodness!
And actually, it went even worse than that, because when after the Civil War, what many medical schools throughout the country would do, and especially here in South Carolina, because my research has been primarily in South Carolina, but what many of these medical schools would do is they would go rob graves of recently buried Black folk to take them to the medical school to be dissected. So they exhibited ghoulish behavior.
Hey, Doc, I don't want the conversation to get away, but I just want to, without talking about this one piece, and you may can expound about it because I don't know. I'm sure going to medical school they give you the backdrop of this, the whole AMA and Rockefeller's uh, connection to that, and how that kind of like directed the industry of medical practices. If I'm correct in saying that.
Uh-huh. Yeah. You know, I have a cousin. Let me see. There was Rockefeller hired uh, a guy. He was a Jewish guy actually, and I'm trying to think of his name. And he did a report. You know, at one point there were as many as 13, 14, 15 black medical schools in the country, and Rockefeller hired this guy to evaluate all the medical schools, and he wrote a report. And I'm mad that I'm blocking his name. Um, and as a result of his report, large proportion, maybe almost half of the existing medical schools, black and white, had to close. But it especially hit black folk because the only medical schools that he gave a passing grade to were Howard and Meharry. Um, the largest medical school at that time was in Raleigh, North Carolina, as part of Shaw University. It was called the Leonard Medical School, and it closed because of his report. And I recently bought a book that details his involvement with that. I just have not had an opportunity to read it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually is one of the reasons why we practice. Yeah. Thank you, Brother Vince. Abraham Flexner. It was called the Flexner Report. And Rockefeller was one of the reasons why we practice the type of medicine that we practice today,
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
allopathic,
Mm-hmm.
rather than more holistic and naturopathic,
Mm-hmm.
or a combination of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know, we know that he made a lot of money in oil, but then he was visionary enough to see that drug companies would become multi-billion-dollar industries, and he had a lot of investments in that. So um, he discouraged the cheaper natural herbal remedies,
Right.
and so you know, again, that's a whole different field of study. I think it's very interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up because very few people know that. You know, as I talked, as I said the last time we were in discussion, nothing just happens.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things we take for granted, just like there are many, and I'm just going to mention this in passing. I don't want to get into it, but there are many people who are confirmed Christians who have beliefs that um, some things were ordained by God. When, if you look at the history, you can see the argument that men had in terms of some of
Yeah. For sure. For
it.
sure.
So, you know, nothing just happens. Things and they're not always divinely ordained.
Last point, Doc. I just needed to be out here. See, you're right now. You validating a lot of stuff that I talk about mostly, and you know, so I can continue to talk about. And I don't know what has changed, at recently about the schooling, far as medical the studies is concerned. Nutrition courses. Now, I was told and ran across some information that very few, if any, actual nutritional courses are taught in medical school.
To my knowledge, that is 100% correct.
Okay.
And you know, it's interesting.
Okay.
Back in the day when I came through in the olden days, the expectation was that you graduated from medical school, you put up your shingle and open your practice. Yet there were absolutely no courses on business
Okay.
that taught us how to do that.
Mm.
Um, there no. I think that some of the medical school courses now have maybe one course in nutrition,
Right. Right.
but it's not seen as anything major.
Mm. So how
You
could
know,
how should we? I see that's weird to me because I, I have to say this, Vince. You might been to the doctor with your kids, or you visiting somebody in the hospital and things like that. Matter of fact, I just had to deal with it a little bit with my brother having some issues, and by knowing a little bit about nutrition, I try to pride myself in knowing a little bit about it. And you go into the hospital and you see the food that they're offering sick patients, and I'm just taking way back, in reference to that, So I'm saying this is what I'm saying again, people. That's why we have to step up our game. We just giving you a backdrop of understanding what this whole medical system is about. And you can't sit back on your loins and just take everything in and go along with the program. Because hospitals are building up. They're expecting a lot of future pathology. They're adding on wings. Every hospital that I know of is adding wings to their facilities, so they're expecting a lot of sick people. So that in turn, we got to do a better job of knowing our physiology, what's necessary, and start teaching our kids to do better and demand more as far as our food and things is concerned, because they're trying to take a hold. I was just talking to another friend, and quickly, it's so many vegetables now that they're recalling because of E. coli. Is this due to Monsanto's, or him messing with the seeds or something or whatever? I don't know, but I never ran across this much uh, recall on vegetables the way it was going on. So I'm just saying we need to take a better approach and look at this whole thing here.
you know, the exception to what you just said about hospitals adding wings is in states where they did not expand Medicaid,
Oh, okay.
because in
Okay.
those states,
Okay.
actually, they're losing hospitals.
Okay. Okay.
Small hospital, community hospitals are closing.
Mm-hmm.
In some places, I'm told, within a couple of 100-yard radius, they don't have any OBGYNs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know that I was told in some places in Georgia, the nearest hospital might be 50 to 75 miles away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and it's interesting because this also points out more hypocrisy, because most of the legislators who vote to not expand this Medicaid in those states tend to be Christian nationalists. So, um, I don't understand what aspect of the Bible that they are going by, because my little knowledge of growing up in the Bible Belt and going to vacation Bible school and Sunday school and all of that, the if people were to go by what Jesus said in the Bible, then those things wouldn't be possible.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
again, hypocrisy. We know about that.
Yes. Go ahead, Vince. Uh-oh.
Get three
Oh.
Network right here on AM 1490 WERE. Our guest is Dr. Burnett Quadwo Gallman. He is a graduate of Benedict College in Columbia, South Carolina. And as a physician, he's focused on the health and well-being of all humanity. He researches the causes of racial health disparities so that they can be eliminated and optimal health can be achieved. Dr. Gallman, earlier we were talking about eugenics and the conversation turned to hysterectomies. And I was intentional about bringing that up because I think that's just one of the examples of medical apartheid that we've been talking about today. I know, or perhaps I believe, I'm not a doctor, so I can't say this with ultimate authority, but I know that there is an agenda involved in harvesting certain aspects of a woman's physiology through hysterectomy. And then I think on a broader scale about things like HIV, AIDS, and Ebola, and so forth and so on. Brother Lynn brought up the idea of Bill Gates and what he's doing, and just from research that I've done, I know that Bill Gates took his brand of agriculture to different countries, and as a result, there were unimprovements in agriculture because of technology that he used and so forth and so on. And then when I look at what's going on in America, we talk about America being the greatest country on the face of the earth, but at the same time, we suffer from some of the worst health disparities on the planet. And when American brand of eating and consumption and consumerism goes to other countries, then it affects them in the same way. So, we talked about the formation of the American Medical Association and the paradigm shift away from holistic things and into the allopathic modalities that are in force right now.
Mhm.
That whole mentality, if it ain't working, take it out, really does a disservice to humans that don't really give their bodies an opportunity to heal, which they will do with the proper stimulus and the proper knowledge. There's a saying, physician, heal thyself. And I think one of the major issues that we have as beings on this planet is we really don't know ourselves. We have this conversation all the time. We don't
Mhm.
know what a spleen does. We don't
We
know
don't know
what
where
the
it's
function of
located. We don't know where it's
pancreas
located.
is.
You know what I'm saying?
We don't know how our bodies function. So then when things go wrong, we
Mhm.
don't know what to do, and we go to somebody and ask them what's wrong with us. So I'm just curious about what perhaps some of the remedies are when it comes to us having a greater awareness of ourselves, our bodies, how we function, and how we can take some of the power out of the physician's hands to
Mhm.
determine our destiny when it comes to healing from things that happen to us in life.
Well, I think that you put it perfectly. I think that we need to know ourselves in historically, physiologically, and culturally, as well as intellectually. And I think that if we know ourselves and we treat our bodies as well as we treat our cars, I think that we do pretty well. And that's one of the things that I used to tell my male patients. As black men sometimes tend to be real macho, and sometimes they say, well, they were used to, and at least my patients here sometimes would brag. I hadn't seen a doctor in 20 years. I hadn't, I said, okay, so when's the last time you had your car tuned up? And they last week said, so you treat your car better than you treat your body.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, but Brother Vance, you mentioned back to eugenics, and what's happening now is that we're seeing a new form of eugenics that's
Mhm.
arising. They're calling it transhumanism. And transhumanism is, they're flying under the radar, but there's a big literature out there. And one of the big tenets of transhumanism are organ donations. And let me read to you some elements of that. White folk get 71% of liver transplants. White folks are 4 times more likely to get a kidney transplant than an Hausa person. Hausa being African from the United States of America. Whites get more than 80% of lung transplants. Whites get more than 90% of all simultaneous pancreatic and kidney transplants. Whites get more than 60% of all intestinal transplants. Now, when I did that research, I tried to find out where the donated organs were coming from,
Mhm.
and it's nowhere to be found. It's nowhere to
you,
be found.
you're opening up some worms.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. You know, maybe it's my nature, but folks be disappearing every day, and they're
No,
unaccounted
I'm
for.
telling you, boy. I'm telling you.
So, you know,
Yeah.
and the who is really kind of interesting too. You know, and I don't want to step in it on any toes because Dr. Gallman, Brother Hamtonio is a police officer. But I'm just gonna say that if anybody could get away with snatching a body, need I say more?
Yeah, that's something we have to look at, because I think they muddy the waters with these missing person reports and things like that. You know, of course, we have these young folks mad running away, and it's a revolving door in reference to that. But I think they sneak in some of the ones that don't have these, people looking at them in the backgrounds and things like that. Man, I, 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 I think if we really was to look deep into this whole thing, but you'll see some sinister stuff going on because there's been reports of people found on the side of the road with their organs gone.
Yeah.
So there's been places to where I think it was Detroit or whatever, where they called this mortician, and they found all these bodies and stuff. If we really paid some attention and somebody really did some work, we'll find out there's some real sinister stuff that is going on.
Remember the Atlanta child murders?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
was that ever
No,
really resolved in terms of investigation and determination who
no,
did what?
no, 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 no. That
And
was
I
that
don't
was
think they recovered any of those all of the bodies either, did they?
I don't think so. I don't think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. So that's big business. It's big business. And then some of the ladies be talking about now where see we getting a little wiser on certain things because there's battles that we should be fighting. Don't even know that we need to be in the fight. You know what I mean? That's how the lack of knowledge on some things that they just coerce us right into it and we follow along. Just dealing with the placenta and that whole stem cell situations. On how much money did they making off the placenta? And we just give it away freely. You know what I mean? And then, of course, we could attach that to the old Henrietta Lacks piece as well. How I mean, these are the type of things that are going on right up under our noses while we worried about basketball and all the rest of this mess. That is some sinister stuff going on.
And with respect to the placenta, the woman does not have control of her placenta. It came out of her body, but you can't just walk out the hospital with your placenta, you know, which is another reason why, when it's possible, young ladies or older ladies, childbearing years,
Make them
whatever,
pay for it.
they should consider natural childbirth. They should consider working with a doula. They should consider bringing their children into the world in a way that's really more in alignment with how they can successfully survive the process. The way they do it now, they got you in the wrong position. For one, I'm not a
Yeah.
gynecologist, but I've heard enough about it to know that the way they're doing it now is not the way that it should be done. If you do it the way we were taught to do it, perhaps you have a better outcome. But you come out and then you come into this bright light when you've been in darkness for 9 months. There are just so many things there that are wrong with the way they're bringing children into the world. It's like they put them at a disadvantage almost immediately. And then within the first few years of their birth, they're not drinking mother's milk. They're drinking some synthetic form called formula. They're not getting the antibodies that they could get from their mother's milk and the nutrients that they could get from their mother's milk. I don't know. I'm gonna step off the
It was,
soapbox.
yeah, real quick,
You're speaking truth.
because when you hit that, I don't have the author in front of me, but it's like a blue covering book. So when you look it up, I got it from Brother Asa Hilliard. It's called The Magical Child. The Magical Child. And they went down, Europeans went down in Africa and was tripping on how those Ugandan babies were lifting their head, no recognizing their parents and stuff a day after, all and had all kind of great function and how and so they study how what they was doing with their children, even as far as when the children was born and the umbilical cord. This is how they got all that type of stuff. Africans was already doing it, So it's called The Magical Child, and it gives you that whole spiritual peace in connection with birthing a baby. So I'm saying if mothers, if you're pregnant, get that book and read so you can at least have some ammunition, so you just don't be open to let the doctors do anything they want to do to you without your consent.
And that hits on something very, very important. Now, I don't know whether or not this is the case all over the United States, but I know that in South Carolina, a lot of physicians were so egotistical that they didn't want to be questioned. So they didn't actually give the patients an opportunity to ask questions, at least not the Black patients. And I think that if there's anyone here listening, if there's any one of the takeaways, one should be that you should always ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's your body.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's your body. So you have the right to always ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And if your physician doesn't want to answer those questions, you need a new doctor.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I don't know if you pulled that up now. Yeah, The Magical Child. I found it very, very interesting. It's just to me here. I'm gonna say this real quick. It's it's the connection, the connection with I mean, the spiritual connection that we do things in this country. It just don't jive up. There's those connections. Like you said, Vince, if you take the baby away from the mother from the beginning, you know what I mean, and place them somewhere else, you're putting them on some other formula. You're losing some of the immune building properties that the milk gave you. I mean, it's just so many things that they're out of order with holistically that we just go along with because of our ignorance, because we don't know, man, and it's causing all kind of problems. They used to, when your baby's born, put this stuff in your eyes. You don't know what they do. They want to shoot you with a whole bunch of vaccinations right out the gate. We just got to do a better job, my people. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. And you one thing you mentioned about childbirth, Vince, is one of the things that I think they're getting back to now is the position of the woman during childbirth.
Yes.
If you go to Egypt now and you look on the walls of some of the temples, especially the one at Khan Ambo, where you have a wall that shows several women giving birth on a birth stool, and they're sitting upright so that gravity is helping the childbirth process.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's some places that are trying to get back to that.
Yes.
That's the book right there. Yeah.
What is
Magical
that?
Child.
Magical Child. I'm have to get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Joseph Pierce, Magical Child.
Asa was so good about books. I know whenever we would have him here, he'd have a backpack full of books that he'd give away.
Mm. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, somebody else said that about him as a person. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my brother loved him. That's one of his favorites. His story. He went to Egypt with Asa, and he has right now 12 hours of his documentation after they went out and into the field, and he did lectures after. Asa allowed him to record all of that.
And so he's a member of, I think that Asa used to call that the royal family.
It could be
all the people who went to Egypt with him.
Okay.
Asa did a 12-part series on for the people with Listerville Middleton here, which I think is on YouTube, but I know that we are kind of prodding South Carolina ETV, Education Television, to make more of those shows available because because Listerville and Listerville and Asa were like brothers. They actually did some business things together on a handshake. And no, so Listerville also interviewed Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, Van Sertima, Finch, and you
Hey,
know,
do you remember real quick his slogan? You remember he used to say at the end of the or the beginning of his show. Do you remember that?
no, not
You know, I was trying to remember it. Yeah, I seen several of his stuff, his things. It was good. It was good.
but the one thing that I remember, his most famous, people don't realize, many people don't realize he was also a poet, and he published three books of
Okay.
poetry.
Okay.
And the last book, and actually, as a matter of fact, his daughter recently republished some of his poems. That's available also. But his most famous poem was on the origin of things. And I like to end my lectures frequently with the last few lines of that poem, which is minute by minute, hour by
Yes.
hour,
Yes.
as you lose
That's what I'm talking about. Yes, that's what I'm
Okay,
your
talking
power.
give it to
about.
us again because we didn't hear it, brother. And we got a minute and 15 seconds. What was
Um,
that saying?
the last few words are minute by minute, hour by hour. As you lose your history, you lose your power. So sharpen your eyes, tune your ear, so you'll know what you see, understand what you
What
hear.
to hear? Yes. Yes.
Okay, well, on that note, we're going to end the broadcast. I think it's an appropriate place to pause. And thank you for joining us. We'd like to encourage you to check out this broadcast on our YouTube channels. Mine is Vince Robinson. His is The Journey with Hamtonio. Thank you, Dr. Gallman, for being with us, and we look forward to your next connection with us. We'd
I
also
look
like to
forward
thank,
to it.
all right, we'd like to thank our engineer, Tone Harley. Tone, you the man. You make it happen for us, and we are eternally grateful for that. And most of all, we like to thank you for listening and tuning in to 360 Info Network right here on AM 1490 WRE. As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your absolute best day. Peace.
Peace.
Hotel.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in. I wanted to put that on my channel. We didn't get a chance to do it when we was recording live with Dr. Goldman today. It was a good program, interesting program. We always want to remind you guys to share and to subscribe and hit the notification bell. You know, we're going to continue to keep bringing good programs to educate and empower us as a people because there's a lot of things that are going on that we have to stay plugged in, you know, all around the world. Africa is waking up and we need to wake up. And America has some serious things to decide on, especially coming this election. You know, I'm hearing a lot of arguments about the presidential race, and we have to be honest. We in America with that, and America's has never been in favor of the African American community. You know, we had to fight for everything that we been getting, trying to get, for the longest. So for people to say the Democrats has never did anything for or counsel on their policies, it's nothing unusual about that. But surely the Republicans has never gave you anything, and we talked about it a little bit on the show until you come together with some kind of common basis in order to utilize your power, to a point to where somebody respects it, then you're gonna always be placed in the back seat, regardless on who's president. That's what we need to really get to the meat of and understand. We in America, and all you gotta do is if you was a good researcher on history or a student of history, you would know how we've been blindsided and how you got to ask yourself a question. Since we've been here, on what we done for this particular country, we have fought in all their wars. We don't help them with all kind of battles. They don't stole our inventions, our patents. They don't burn down most of our successful towns. Okay, killed your leaders. All right. When he was giving out land, we wasn't in those particular lines to get land. Okay, we dealing with the psychological effect and being torn away from the motherland because we don't know who we are and we don't know where we come from and our lineage or what country we come from. Look, that's some detrimental stuff to a race of people, psychological. Then they pump everything, that you see as far as images about you. It's negative. Your kids, you had generations of that. You know, while the other side is getting all kind of positive doses of their image. So I'm saying, and you still have some where most want to fight you when you talk about reparations and all the damage and everything that you have done as far as this country is concerned. And you got people that haven't shed any blood for this country coming over here and getting benefits. And then they have the nerve of looking down their nose at you and wondering why you're not successful after all the things that you've been done, things that's been done to you. We have to understand that. We have to look at that, you know, because it's very important. So all that has to be put together and understanding on where we're going for farther and further with this thing. And one thing I want to say, for some of the African Americans who's talking this Trump stuff, and then they have the nerve to want to be activists. Let me say something to you. If you think the police is whooping your behind now, what you think is going to happen if he gets back into office? I quote just what Dr. David Whitaker had said about why these people may be entertaining someone who may be talking about a dictatorship, because democracy don't work with those folks no more. See, for democracy to work, you have to be in the majority. And they know 2040, 2050, they're not going to be in the majority anymore. So in order to still sustain power, okay, they okay with a majority rulership because they can, being in a minority position, they can still sustain power. That's why, because it's all about the numbers. Just think about it. You took Georgia, you almost took Texas and North Carolina. No, some people see that as a threat, and that's a problem. So that's why you wonder why, with everything, with all his immorality and things that he's been doing and having a long history of it, and people still going in that direction. That's to let you know that, and then we want to quote, he saved the HBCUs. He didn't do nothing but what was normal on the agenda as far as presidency is concerned. He gonna step up like he did something. Well, I'll tell you what. Go research what Biden and Kamala's did. It's a record amount of dollars they have given to HBCUs. But we get to these talking points and we are fed those talking points and don't even know the research and know what's going on and just take it off and run it. Look at the turmoil that is going on in the Republican Party right now. It's nothing but a farce. What do you think is going to happen if you get back in office with them? No legislation is being passed. Nothing is looked at. And Marjorie Taylor Greene and all that, they ain't put up zero bills or legislations that help us. They still maybe be talking about Obamacare and rolling back. And this is what you want. Y'all can have it if you want, because I'm gonna be doing the best I can to let them have it and get on out of here. Because it's crazy, it's right in your face, and we still asking for more. Well, the Democrats, yeah, well then come together with something and hold their feet to the fire. Which party look like the makeup of this country? The Democrats or the Republicans? Ask yourself that question. Why is they trying to roll back most of those civil rights? And what you think is going to happen if he got back in office? And most of the people that said anything against him was actually Republicans people. It wasn't Democrats that had issues with him and his morals and the things that he wanted to do. He wanted to sick the dogs on civilians, his generals and stuff, and told them that you can't do that. You can't do that. And then one friend of mine had the nerve to say that the Democrats supporters is rowdier than the Republicans. Come on, man. They tried to kidnap the governor in Michigan. You remember that? They tried to kidnap the governor. You got people in maneuvers in the mountains and stuff is just waiting for something to happen. They standing back and standing by. Come on, man. This is, y'all, you can do what you want to do, but you don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe situation. Trust me. I know I'm no great proponent on any one of them because I know I'm living in America. I'll go back and look at history and see since we got off the boat what this country's been doing to us, pianist laws, and we talking about Juneteenth now and all those things. Come on, they've been doing things to us forever. Forever. And most of us, as far as leaders is concerned, we don't succumb to the same mess. Most of the revolutions and rebellions that we dealt with has been one of us turning ourselves, one of our own in. That's how it's been. They always was been able to get to us, being informants of FBI and CIA. They know how to get to us, and that's why we stay stagnant in what we doing and what we about. That's why I say just deal with the culture and the conscientious of us. Our ancestors have left some good stuff for us to live by. They've been here the longest. Ancestors saying, when you going to try them instead of listening to the children? They didn't know it was kid on the block. If you throw the parents out of a household and let the kids run it, soon enough, guess what? The household is going to fall because you got inexperience running the household. So just you got inexperience running the world. Look at the water. Look at the air. Look at the ozone, the fracking. Look at the weather patterns that's going on. Look at the food with the artificial food they want to correct. Look at the pathology that's going on with sick people and everything. How they approach the body. It's not holistic at all. Everything they get home as far as new inventions is concerned, they want to try to see what they can do to weaponize it because they this thirst to stay on top and be the best. I was coining how you in the West, the gunslinger, always worried about who's going to come challenge them. That's what America is. So they have to stay on top and get more devious as they go about what they can do to weaponize something. This is what they do. This is the little conundrum that they find themselves, and we going right along with it. You could be in something and not of it. You could be a community inside of community. That's why you don't have no respect. You let religion tear you all apart and separate you. All the churches, you just fragment your power. Everybody's broken up, never working together. Then they don't fool you with all the names, Jehovah's Witness, Methodist, this, that, and other. Go back to the source. Go back to the origin and where it all come from. Do some studying. Who wrote the Bible? Where did the Bible come from? Look at the councils of Nicaea that they started, got together, Constantine got together, pulling from all other sources and coming to a conclusion on what books was going to be in the Bible. You ever ask yourself why some books got 66, some 99, 103, whatever? They decided what was going to be your religion. And of course, they're going to make it in the best interest of themselves. Go back to the old school. Where they get it from? That's the question. See, we got to think to where I say, okay, where's the origin of this? Where did it come from? And it came from Africa, folks, whether you like it or not. All those basic foundational principles with the 10 Commandments, the resurrection, the birth story, all that come from your people. I'm talking about African American. And matter of fact, everybody come from you, the first people on the planet. But we tend not to get that and understand that. So there's some modern things like, we just talked about with Dr. Gallman that we need to be paying attention to. And all the way up until that point that you've been having some issues with this system. Our health is atrocious. Our health is atrocious at this point. in and out the hospital, suffering from all kinds of disease. Do you know the body was made to live much longer than what we doing? We're 70, 80 years old. That's young. Look up the Georgian Russians. They live 120, 110 years old because of the mineral intake that they have in their body. There's cultures all over the planet living a long time, eating fresh food and good food. So I'm just giving you, passing you on some information, and I hope it stirs you up a little bit to even to do a little bit of a research about something. Take the time, get some books, read. YouTube has made it easier for you where you don't even have to read anything. Well, you still got to discern and decipher, as far as um, YouTube is concerned. I'm gonna leave you with two. I'm gonna leave you with a couple videos to look at if you want to see what exactly, get a taste of what's going on in this country. Video, the Panama Deception. Check that out. Broken Rainbow. Check that out. Check out a video by Dr. Charles Morgan when he's sitting in a setting where he's at a podium like in a lecture hall at West Point. Check him out and see what's going on. If you're interested in all this vaccine situation and update with the coronavirus, check out Dr. John Campbell. He has a plethora of videos that tell you what's going on worldwide about that whole situation. Get a book called the Confessions of an Economic Hitman and see what's going on with this country. There's some materials and some information out there. Check it out and read some, so you'll be able to inform yourself and your family about what's going on, and you won't get totally blindsided about everything that is going on. Cut off the TV a little bit sometime and read something and listen to something that is educational. Because right now, Africa is the new frontier. Everybody is looking to try to colonize it, recolonize it. It has all the natural resources, and pretty much the only continent can be self-sustaining. They don't need anybody. And Africa is lining up with Russia and China and India. So they telling America, look, we're not going to put up with how you've been treating us over the years. It's a rush to recolonize Africa, or at least get a good foothold in it. Don't just let them walk in there and you just turn your back and just give it to them. Get your little piece yourself. Carve yourself a little piece off. That's an investment. You may not have to move there, but get an investment. Get a part of. Be a part of it. In case when your prodigy and your kids from a couple of generations from now want to live somewhere else, then they're able to do that and own some land in another country. What's wrong with that? Because if you Bible scholars out there, what they say goes around comes around. You can't just keep doing the things that you've done for hundreds of years and think nothing's never going to happen or come back on you. America's going to have its day until they come right. They just keep kicking the can down the road and not facing up to the atrocities that they have done to the human race, especially brown and black people, and continue. There's another American apartheid. I mean, American medical apartheid. They talk to you about all the experimentations that they've done. Look up the Oregon experiment with what I just ran across on that. Look up a book called the Higher Forms of Killing. How we've been experimented on. The people have forever. You got to think about it. If they create these things, they got to see how it works on the people. Look up the Marshall Islands, or and the island of Melanosia in Tasmania, when we used to see with Bugs Bunny cartoons. Look up that. Those were people on those islands that they was experiment with radiation. And after atomic bomb, how people can live. They got to see, they built those things. They got to see how it affects people. So they got to get the with eugenics, the feeble-minded or criminal mentality type of folks to use these methods on just to experiment with it and see how how it affects the people. This is what you're dealing with. This is what you're living with. Who you coexisting with. So I don't know if I can say any more than that, but I appreciate you Want more of it? Subscribe, hit the like button, and notification bell for more to come. We'll be doing our programs here in Cleveland. You know, we was doing Juneteenth before it was popular. Some of the places in the South been doing it for a long time, you know, and didn't have to get permission from the system in order to do something that is beneficial to the people. That's how we do. We ain't gonna we gonna wait for the man to tell us it's okay. See, that's the psychological issues that we're going through. So until next time, my people, I appreciate it. All right, and keep posted.